Get ready, start. As Anna Hajar's fast unto death enters the fourth day, the UPA government has shown no signs of relenting on Team Anna's main demand, the enactment of an effective Lokpal bill to curb corruption in the top echelons of the establishment. Ironically, this is a country where millions go hungry every day without attracting public attention, but fasting voluntarily and with such frequency to press for the noblest of all cases. Today, prevention of corruption has seldom been witnessed in independent India before. Not surprisingly, it has attracted unprecedented attention and adulation. However, while undertaking repeated fasts for enactment of and effective Lokpal bill underlines the unwavering commitment and courage of Team Anna. At the same time, it highlights certain other facts. It shows the agitators are not trying to build a parallel mass based on the strength of a constructive program, as was done by Mahatma Gandhi. Fasting is the last weapon in the armory of a non-violent movement, and its rampant use tends to blunt the edge of the weapon. While Gandhi, the creator of this weapon, used it on many occasions, he had many other weapons too in his armory, especially his constructive social program. Team Anna, however, lacks other tools of mass mobilization or social reconstruction. Fasts undertaken by whosoever, even Gandhi, have an element of drama and suspense in it, which is why they attract such a lot of public attention. But getting the nation's attention solely through this prism poses danger for Team Anna, which might ultimately, in public perception, be reduced to the status of a brave drama troupe. They might finally look in nature, if not in magnitude of impact, like a street play group that has the good intention of inducing social change and awareness. To quote V.S. Naipaul on the JP movement in India, a wounded civilization, the revolution was an expression of rage and rejection, but it was a revolution without ideas. It was an emotional outburst, a volo. It would not have taken India forward. Though harsh in tone and tenor, the comment conveys a powerful message. The JP movement, which was without doubt the most powerful protest movement that took place independent that took place in independent India, left important lessons for the posterity of revolutionaries and reformers wanting to bring macro level change in the country. JP himself wrote that for a revolution to succeed, it required a revolutionary leadership as well as a revolutionary organization. JP forgot to mention that it also required a revolutionary program of action. In his movement, only one component was present, a revolutionary leadership. There was no attempt to build a revolutionary organization to assist the leadership and no revolutionary program of action detailing a broad roadmap for change. It was not surprising that the movement finally failed. Pranab Mukherjee, who will be sworn in today as the 13th President of the Indian Republic, is a man conscious of his political stature. He is also a realistic. It's the combination of these two qualities which, in all probability, will come to define his presidency. As a skilled practitioner of statecraft, it's not surprising that Arthashastra is his favorite book, or that a picture of its author Kautilya adorns his room. Here is a pointer to an interesting facet of his persona. Mukherjee had refused to pick up the phone and dial Mamta Banerjee's number himself to seek her support for his candidature. Instead, he got his secretary and senior Congress leaders to line up an appointment to see her. The meeting, though, did not materialize. Fearing Mamta's rejection, Mukherjee might not have wanted to land himself in such a situation. It's another matter that Mamta was later compelled to eat her words and vote for him by way of an explanation for his reluctance to make that phone call. Mukherjee recounted what Indira Gandhi, who influenced him deeply as she did a generation of Congress leaders, had once told him political standing, Gandhi said, must never be compromised. A 6 feet tall man could lose weight if he was not given enough to eat, but he couldn't and shouldn't lose weight. Pranab Mukherjee has also demonstrated a rare ability to read the writing on the wall. This was evident in his agreeing to work under Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, which, given his seniority and experience, could not have been easy. As Finance Minister in the early 80s, Mukherjee had signed the order appointing Manmohan Singh as the RBI governor. Yet he stood solidly behind the PM as Singh increasingly resorted to running the government through GOMS and EGOMS, most of them headed by Mukherjee. He showed this realism once again in 2010, accepting that he wouldn't be able to become prime minister and turning his attention to Raisina Hills. Presidents come and go every 5 years. Each Rashtrapati has defined his presidency. R. Venkataraman saw his presidency as an emergency light which automatically came on in a crisis and went off after it was over. K.R. Narayanan saw himself as working president while APJ Abdul Kalam was the people's pledge. How will Pranab Mukherjee fashion his presidency? Will his tenure be like that of the first president Rajendra Prasad, who enjoyed a parity of stature with the then PM Jawaharlal Nehru and counseled the government on a host of issues? But while Rajendra Prasad often volunteered advice even unsolicited to Nehru, Manmohan Singh is likely to informally seek Pranab Mukherjee's advice himself. There are thousand informal ways for a president to help the PM. The extent to which Pranab Mukherjee will be able to act as a friend, philosopher, and guide to the government and even troubleshoot behind the scenes will depend on the kind of working relationship he and Manmohan Singh are able to establish in their stop.